apre il moderatore. Poi apre il moderatore, però si inviti già a sedersi.
Please take your seat. Se possiamo cominciare, grazie. Invito a prendere posto.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please ask you to invite you to take your seats? We are about to begin. Thank you. Very well, I think we can start our debate. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's debate on the just transition. My name is Daniel Miesic. I'm your moderator today. I'm representing the ČEZ Group, the largest Czech electricity and utilities company in the Czech Republic, and I'm the representative here in Brussels. At the same time, I'm the founder and chair of the Young Energy Professionals Network here in Brussels. And I have the privilege and honor to be the moderator of today's debate. First of all, I would like to thank the Committee of Regions for organizing the European Week of Regions and Cities, and of course the ECR Group for hosting today's event, which is very timely, and I think the topic is extremely important for all of us and all of you as the regions, and is the just transition. The just transition is a concept that started officially in the last decade. And since 2018, it's been an ongoing process how to actually make sure that the regions that bring the historic burden of being fossil intensive, of energy intensive, are not harmed by the concept of the energy transition, but can actually thrive in the decarbonization and in the transition to the more sustainable and greener economy. And it's a topic we are about to discuss today, how to make sure that the citizens are not negatively impacted by the transition, to make sure that transition goes hand in hand with reindustrialization of the European economy, and to make sure that the regions are well equipped to face all the challenges that the just transition bring with itself. Before we start the debate and before I introduce our panelists, it's my great honor to give the floor to the President, Marco Marsilio, the President of ECR Group in the European Committee of Regions, President of the Abruzzo region, and the Committee of Regions Reporter on the just transition for all EU regions. President Marsilio, the floor is yours.
Grazie, dottor Miesic. Per aver portato il suo contributo alla moderazione, alla guida di questo importante workshop. Vi do il benvenuto con grande piacere alla nostra conferenza dei conservatori e riformisti europei durante la settimana europea delle regioni e delle città. Per l'edizione 2024 abbiamo scelto di affrontare un tema di cruciale importanza per il futuro dell'Europa e il momento non potrebbe essere più opportuno, dato che il parere su una transizione giusta, di cui ho l'onore di essere il relatore, sarà discusso e approvato proprio questo pomeriggio durante la sessione plenaria del Comitato europeo delle regioni. L'impresa che ci attende ha del colossale, l'ambiziosa transizione dell'Unione europea verso un'economia climaticamente neutra sta avendo ripercussioni sempre più profonde per le regioni, per i lavoratori, per le industrie e per la società in generale. La sfida più immediata è la trasformazione dei settori a elevata intensità energetica, i cosiddetti settori energivori, il cui impatto si sta già facendo sentire nelle regioni di tutta Europa. Pensiamo ad esempio all'industria automobilistica, Quest'anno molte aziende europee del settore hanno annunciato tagli di decine di migliaia di posti di lavoro. Il mese scorso Volkswagen, una delle aziende simbolo dell'industria automobilistica europea, ha annunciato la possibile chiusura di alcuni stabilimenti in Germania, un fatto senza precedenti nella sua storia. A pochi chilometri da qui anche la fabbrica Audi, con i suoi circa 3.000 dipendenti, minaccia di cessare le attività. Nella mia regione, dove ha sede una importante fabbrica di veicoli commerciali leggeri, l'ex Sevel di Stellantis, stiamo vivendo da settimane e settimane un periodo di cassa integrazione che non si era mai visto nei 40 anni di storia di questa fabbrica, con eccezione del Covid. Anche il settore che fino a poche settimane fa, quello dei furgoni, quello dei veicoli commerciali, che sembrava mantenere i livelli produttivi, sta cominciando a declinare, a mostrare segni di preoccupante difficoltà. Come amministratori locali e regionali noi siamo i soggetti istituzionali più vicini ai cittadini e siamo quindi anche i primi a percepire l'impatto socio-economico di queste trasformazioni, sia per quanto riguarda le aziende che per quanto riguarda i lavoratori e i cittadini in genere. In quest'ottica è essenziale che questa transizione avvenga seguendo il principio della neutralità tecnologica. Non possiamo non prendere in considerazione il fatto di come il tessuto produttivo dei territori cambi non soltanto tra gli Stati membri, ma anche all'interno degli Stati membri da regione a regione. E tutto questo ci impone di mantenere una certa flessibilità che permetta ad ogni territorio di promuovere un processo di decarbonizzazione secondo le modalità ritenute più adeguate e sostenibili. Io penso che questo sia l'approccio corretto da un punto di vista sia tecnologico che politico, un approccio realmente democratico che può garantire la coesione territoriale e salvaguardare il diritto dei cittadini a restare nelle proprie regioni. Un elemento centrale che è emerso dai numerosi confronti che abbiamo avuto modo di organizzare con le regioni e con le industrie è che il nostro impegno non può prescindere da finanziamenti più elevati, se non vogliamo compromettere seriamente la nostra competitività economica rispetto ai concorrenti al di fuori dell'Unione Europea, almeno fino a quando gli obiettivi non saranno così ambiziosi e così elevati al tempo stesso. A obiettivi sfidanti e ambiziosi devono corrispondere finanziamenti adeguati. Per questo chiediamo che l'attuale Fondo per la transizione giusta sia esteso a un maggiore numero di settori in transizione. Non ci sono soltanto le regioni carbonifere che hanno visto chiudere le miniere, e sia parte integrante di una politica di coesione riformata che possa sostenere le industrie ad alta intensità di consumo energetico, di manodopera e di emissione di gas serra. Infine, la transizione deve essere graduale ed equilibrata, lavorando in sinergia con i livelli nazionali, regionali, locali e con il settore privato. Abbiamo bisogno di un approccio pragmatico, non ideologico, che si muova dal basso verso l'alto. Abbiamo bisogno di un maggiore coinvolgimento degli enti locali e regionali. Dobbiamo ascoltare le nostre imprese e le loro capacità di transizione, monitorando al contempo gli sviluppi del mercato. Invece di bloccare le attività produttive in fase di transizione, come nel caso della produzione di veicoli a combustione interna, dovremo mettere in campo i giusti incentivi per sostenere la ricerca e l'innovazione verso tutte le soluzioni, comprese quelle alternative, ad esempio i biocarburanti citati anche da Mario Draghi nel suo rapporto sulla competitività europea. In questo modo possiamo rendere la transizione più sostenibile senza nuocere allo sviluppo competitivo dell'industria europea. Se vogliamo raggiungere gli obiettivi più ambiziosi della transizione, come quello che riguarda l'automotive, abbiamo bisogno di una strategia complessiva è necessario istituire un fondo a sostegno dell'intera filiera dei veicoli elettrici prodotti in Europa, compresi i consumatori che li acquistano, e garantire l'autonomia europea nella produzione delle batterie, utilizzando materie prime critiche estratte e lavorate in Europa. È l'unico approccio che permette di preservare la centralità di questo settore in Europa. Vorrei concludere sottolineando la necessità di associare strettamente le politiche climatiche alla crescita economica e, come richiesto da molti in seno al Consiglio e al Parlamento, rivedere le norme più gravose del Green Deal e le relative scadenze, concedendo alle nostre imprese e alle nostre filiere produttive il tempo di adeguarsi e rendere l'osservanza delle norme compatibile con gli altri obiettivi, quali la competitività economica, la sovranità tecnologica e la coesione territoriale. I recenti sviluppi politici a livello dell'Unione Europea mi fanno ben sperare. Dall'agenda strategica del Consiglio europeo alle priorità elencate dalla Presidente von der Leyen nelle sue mission letter ai commissari designati, i temi ricorrenti sono stati la competitività, la resilienza e una transizione giusta. Ma noi non possiamo accontentarci delle parole. Alle parole, ai proclami devono far seguito i fatti concreti. Negli ultimi mesi abbiamo lavorato duramente a questo parere affinché mandi un messaggio chiaro alle istituzioni europee per l'inizio del nuovo ciclo istituzionale e continueremo a lanciare questo appello per una transizione pragmatica e tecnologicamente neutra in varie sedi istituzionali nel prossimo futuro. Vi ringrazio tutti per l'attenzione. Un sincero ringraziamento va al segretariato dell'ECR per aver organizzato questo importante workshop, per averci assistito, a me e all'esperto tecnico, al professor Stefano Cianciotta, nella redazione del parere, nell'accoglimento, nella anche negoziazione dei necessari compromessi sugli emendamenti che rendessero possibile, come auspichiamo che sia, insomma, e oggi pomeriggio si vota, ma dovremmo avere una ampia maggioranza per poter approvare un parere assolutamente innovativo che pone temi che fino a poco tempo fa erano completamente negati ed erano per certi versi un tabù nelle istituzioni europee. Quindi siamo molto soddisfatti per questo. Io vi ringrazio, vi auguro buon lavoro, vi chiedo scusa se non assisterò al resto dei lavori perché devo anche appunto preparare e predisporre i diversi passaggi, compresi quelli comunicativi, per la preparazione del parere succedere, però siete in ottima compagnia di un panel di relatori assolutamente qualificati e importanti, che ringrazio tutti per aver portato e per il contributo che stanno per portare a questa iniziativa. Buon lavoro a tutti.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your great introduction and summary of the state of play and the way ahead. There were certain points in Mr. President's speech that I would like to highlight because they amazingly introduce our today's debate. First of all, the greater need of funding. I think with the representatives of EIB and DG REGIO, we will very much delve into this topic. Second of all, the social sustainability. It's very important to perceive the just transition not only from the perspective of the environmental sustainability, but also the economic sustainability. I think we can see this direction a lot with the new mandate of the European Commission. With the Draghi's report, we can see lots of focus on how to actually make our economy sustainable, not only from the environmental point of view, but also from the social point of view, and to make sure that our businesses and citizens thrive. And that brings me to the related third topic, and that's social inclusion, the regional inclusion, and making sure that the regions and cities are well equipped to face the challenges that the just transition bring. I won't stall anymore, and I will introduce our today's panelists. So please, very warm welcome to, first of all, Ms. Roberta Angelilli, the Vice President of the Lazio Region and the Regional Minister responsible for the regional development. You also bring expertise and experience as a former MEP and Vice President of the European Parliament. Welcome. Secondly, Mr. Nicola De Michelis, the Deputy Director General for Programme Implementation at the DG REGIO at the European Commission, who brings long-standing career in the European Commission and before in the OECD. Welcome. Ms. Małgorzata Jarosińska-Jedynak, the member of the Podkarpackie Region in Poland and former minister responsible for regional funds. Welcome. And last but not least, Ms. Luciana Tomozei, Head of Global Affairs and Sectoral Policies Division at the European Investment Bank Brussels office. Welcome. I will start with Vice President Angelilli. Your region, Lazio Region, has been involved in the Patto per il Centro initiative, which is supposed to support the local industries, the local competitiveness. What synergies do you actually see between your initiative and the just transition process? And how well do you feel equipped as a region to actually face the challenges that are linked to the process?
Grazie e ringrazio il Presidente Marsilio e il gruppo ECR per aver voluto organizzare questa importante occasione di incontro e di confronto su temi che sono temi importantissimi per tutti gli Stati membri, per l'Europa e anche per le nostre regioni. Ho una grande esperienza come parlamentare europeo perché sono stata deputato al Parlamento europeo per 20 anni e quindi so comprendere profondamente quanto è importante mantenere un filo diretto, una collaborazione, una sinergia tra le istituzioni europee, Parlamento, Commissione, ma anche le altre istituzioni europee, compresa la Banca Europea degli Investimenti e il territorio, perché le decisioni che vengono prese a Bruxelles hanno un impatto straordinario sui nostri territori e un impatto concreto e allo stesso tempo i nostri territori hanno delle aspettative altrettanto concrete rispetto alle istituzioni europee. Innanzitutto voglio dire che condivido al 100% la relazione del Presidente Marsilio su una transizione che sia giusta, che sia equa e che lo sia in modo collettivo, ma anche per i territori, per i cittadini, per le famiglie e per le imprese e quindi anche per i lavoratori. Credo che la parola d'ordine debba essere fare squadra, quindi lavorare in modo sinergico a partire dai territori, in stretto contatto con le istituzioni europee, ma nel lavorare noi dobbiamo coinvolgere sempre di più gli attori protagonisti del territorio, quindi le autorità locali, le imprese, le associazioni delle imprese e quanto più possibile i cittadini, perché l'Europa deve rispettare il principio di sussidiarietà. Questa è la sfida vera che ci troviamo di fronte. E si diceva prima, noi abbiamo siglato la Regione Lazio, la Regione Abruzzo, la Regione Marche, la Regione Umbria, proprio un patto per il centro Italia, allo scopo di condividere le buone pratiche, progettare e realizzare iniziative di sistema con un forte impatto sul territorio, sinergie pubblico-privato su tutti i temi che sono i temi fondamentali, le sfide fondamentali, a partire dalla transizione digitale e dalla transizione energetica. È evidente, l'ha detto anche il Presidente Marsilio, che la transizione, sia quella digitale che quella energetica, la decarbonizzazione, non sono transizioni a costo zero, hanno un impatto economico, hanno un impatto finanziario, ma hanno un impatto anche sul sistema produttivo e quindi di conseguenza sui territori, i cittadini, le imprese, i lavoratori. Quindi la transizione va fatta, innanzitutto la transizione energetica, perché noi vogliamo fortissimamente rispettare l'ambiente, preservare il patrimonio ambientale, ma questa transizione non può penalizzare i cittadini, le imprese e i territori, cioè non si può fare una transizione che ricada in termini di oneri e di conseguenze sulla pelle dei cittadini. Quindi deve essere una transizione governata, ragionata, deve essere una transizione concertata e deve avere anche degli adeguati finanziamenti. La transizione deve essere una transizione che preveda investimenti importanti, non è una transizione che si può fare senza un piano strategico delle risorse disponibili, perché il contesto geopolitico europeo e mondiale è cambiato profondamente, direi anche drammaticamente, rispetto a quando il Green Deal è stato proposto nel 2019, perché non tutti i territori partono dalla stessa base di partenza, hanno punti di forza ma anche punti di debolezza, hanno capacità amministrative diverse e assolutamente noi dobbiamo imporre, dobbiamo favorire un approccio dal basso verso l'alto, che deve essere l'elemento principale perché ciascuna regione possa affrontare in maniera anche socialmente ed economicamente questa sfida della transizione energetica. A mio avviso ha fatto bene il ministro italiano Adolfo Urso, ministro alle imprese e alle attività economiche, qualche settimana fa, a chiedere all'Europa di anticipare la data della clausola di revisione del Green Deal ai primi mesi del 2025 anziché del 2026, perché in questo momento, alle condizioni date, rispettare la scadenza del 2035 è eccessivamente sfidante per il nostro sistema anche industriale. Quindi anche come rappresentante della Regione Lazio il nostro impegno deve essere quello di orientarsi verso il raggiungimento di questi obiettivi, utilizzare ogni singola risorsa disponibile, mettere in campo delle strategie che prevedano il coinvolgimento di tutte le categorie, di tutti gli attori protagonisti del territorio, ma anche accompagnare le imprese nella transizione, accompagnarle anche finanziariamente. Faccio pochi esempi. Nel mese di settembre la Regione Lazio ha previsto dei bandi per le imprese, 40 milioni di euro per l'efficientamento energetico e le rinnovabili e 30 milioni per l'economia circolare. Queste sono delle opportunità concrete per le imprese per affrontare la sfida della transizione. Abbiamo poi anche approvato un bando di oltre 75 milioni di euro per le imprese ad alto impatto innovativo, ma noi dobbiamo aiutare anche le imprese più piccole. Penso per esempio alle imprese artigiane. Abbiamo previsto uno stanziamento di 7 milioni di euro proprio per accompagnarle all'ammodernamento, alla sostenibilità e all'innovazione. Quando noi parliamo di innovazione e di sostenibilità non possiamo pensare soltanto alle grandi imprese, dobbiamo pensare alle medie imprese, alle piccole imprese e anche alle microimprese, perché la sfida è una sfida generale. Quindi voglio riassumere in 4 punti quelle che sono le nostre necessità. Primo, è necessaria un'attenta valutazione delle condizioni economiche e sociali che sono alla base del processo di transizione. è una buona idea quella di istituire un osservatorio europeo per una transizione giusta, con una mappatura attenta del territorio e delle esigenze del territorio, quindi molto concreta. Punto 2, un maggior coinvolgimento, l'ha già detto il Presidente Marsilio, degli enti locali e regionali e un forte coinvolgimento delle associazioni datoriali, dei rappresentanti delle aziende europee, proprio nell'elaborazione delle politiche sulla transizione, perché noi non dobbiamo lasciare nessuno indietro, nessun cittadino, nessun territorio, anzi il territorio deve essere protagonista di questa azione di transizione. Terzo, una politica di coesione più forte. Nel 25 inizierà anche il negoziato per la prossima programmazione, quella che partirà dal 27. Ecco, noi ci dobbiamo concentrare su quelli che sono i bisogni, le aspettative concrete del territorio e dobbiamo aiutare il nostro sistema economico e produttivo, soprattutto le nostre aziende, ad affrontare in maniera equa la transizione energetica. Penso per esempio anche alle industrie strategiche, quelle energivore, quelle ad alta intensità di manodopera, come ha ricordato anche il Presidente Marsilio, il settore dell'automotive, che è un settore strategico ma che rischia di veramente essere messo in crisi in maniera irreversibile. E quarto, è stato già detto, abbiamo bisogno di un fondo per una transizione giusta. Senza risorse adeguate sarà impossibile porci degli obiettivi veramente sfidanti e arrivare al duplice obiettivo, che è quello dell'abbattimento delle emissioni, quindi preservare l'ambiente, ma allo stesso tempo preservare il nostro sistema produttivo e quindi mantenere una coesione sociale che è assolutamente indispensabile e dare un futuro alle nostre aziende e anche ai nostri lavoratori. Quindi io mi fermo qui. Il ruolo del nostro gruppo è un ruolo indispensabile, perché noi dobbiamo ascoltare i territori e dobbiamo uscire fuori da un certo approccio ideologico che ha caratterizzato i 5 anni precedenti, troppo ideologico. Ripeto, dobbiamo avere obiettivi ambiziosi, ma non dobbiamo far sì che questi obiettivi ambiziosi si realizzino sulla pelle dei nostri cittadini e vadano a penalizzare i nostri territori. La transizione ci deve essere, ma deve essere una transizione giusta. Grazie.
Thank you, Madam Vice President, for your introductory remarks and also for sticking with the limit of 10 minutes, which I forgot to mention in the beginning, but you were sticking to it by second. So this is much appreciated. I have very much appreciated in your speech that you focused on the synergies under the principle of subsidiarity and within the economy, because this is something which will really bring us forward in just transition and achieving the sustainable economy that is actually there for the citizens, regions, and economy. And the theme of synergies is bringing me to our second speaker, Mr. De Michelis. The synergies is actually a word that is very much repeated in connection with the new College of the European Commission. And I understand that from your perspective, it's not an easy time because we are in the transition period between the old Commission and the new Commission. The new priorities will be very much on the discretion of the new Commissioner. But with your past experience, what do you actually expect from the new Commission when it comes to synergies between various portfolios? Because the portfolios of the new Commissioners somehow overlap. They will have to communicate, which is actually very good, because only by working together and breaking the silos we can achieve some tangible results. And what is your expectation for the heavy industry regions and regions in transition, what they can actually expect from the new mandate?
Well, thank you very much. And thanks to the Committee of the Region and to President Marsilio for the opinion on the just transition that comes at a very opportune moment. Well, to respond to your question, I would be very brief because I don't know. We will need to see when the Commission starts, probably in December, how it will get his method of work and how it will work together. Clearly, the indication that the President gave to its team is you need to work together. And this is why many files are distributed among different vice presidents and commissioners. And I think that this is okay because particularly in the field of transition, you need to bring together different expertise and experiences because you need to have around the table different sectors, different angles, different dimensions of a problem that requires integrated responses. So we will see in a couple of months how all this will work. Let me just share a few reflections on your second question. What should we wait for? Look, I think that the just transition mechanism was born out of an intuition that transitions, whether it's the green transition, is the digital transition, is the demographic transition, or is the industrial transition that we are very much talking about, we've been talking about in the past few months, has very asymmetric impacts. It touches territories and people in different ways, and therefore it requires very targeted responses. You cannot treat the transition in general. You need to look at where and when things happen. And this is exactly what the Just Transition Fund and Just Transition Mechanism do. And this has been, by the way, reinforced by the creation of the Social Climate Fund, that in a sense is also an instrument to accompany the transition by providing revenue support measures to those people that will be touched by the different transitions. So this is simply to say that A, transition will remain at the center and it will become even more important in the agenda of the next Commission. And second, that it will require very much integrated packages of investment to address those challenges. Let me conclude with two comments, one on the budget and one on the governance. Because I think that, and this has been very much at the center of the beginning of this European Week of Regions and Cities, are the question particularly of governance. Let me start with the budget. It's clear, and you know it very well, that the pressure on the European budget will be extraordinary, because of the new challenges, whether it's defense, whether it's industry, whether it's migration, whether it's the enlargement that will cost dearly, particularly for cohesion policy and agriculture, because the Commission has to repay the Recovery and Resilience Facility, and that will cost around 30 billion euro per year for the next 30 years. So this is simply to say that the discussion on the budget will be complicated. And therefore, very honestly, I think that the best way to deal with transition is by integrating the transition policy challenge into existing instrument rather than creating separate funds. Because the more you fragment the budget, the more the risk of having smaller little envelope that address different specific issues. And I think that it's much better to say transition is a policy challenge and it needs to be part of the big investment policies of the Union, which in particular means cohesion policy. So I think that the logic around which the Commission is operating is to merge funds in a single instrument rather than having different and many smaller funds. On the governance, and I think that Vice President Angelilli said it very clearly, the question we are confronted at the moment is to what extent regions and local authorities will continue to have a place and role in designing and conceptualizing and implementing the funds available under the future multi-annual financial framework. And I think that here is very important that, particularly here in the Committee of the Regions and with regional and local actors around the table, we remain very strong in arguing that Europe can organize at the European level large trans-European networks, research, but transitions, precisely because of their local nature, requires local responses and require the knowledge and the expertise and the intelligence that only local actors have. And therefore, it's important to make the case that whatever investment policy will be designed for the future, it will continue to be based on the necessary dialogue between level of governments, and I have no problem in understanding that we need a stronger steer at European and national level to identify what the big challenges are, but then it's up to the regions, it's up to the local authorities to design their responses to those challenges on the basis of partnership, on the basis of strategic programming. And I insist very much on this because I sense that one thing that is happening is to move away from programming toward projects. And this is the policy we had in the 80s. This is space old stuff. We need strategic thinking of how to address issues like demographic and green transition because it requires integration of instruments. It requires investment in innovation, in skills, in infrastructure at the same time. And that requires strategic thinking. And then you fill in it with projects rather than having calls launched at the national or the European level and financing little projects here and there. So I think that this principle, partnership, multi-level governance, programming, needs to be very much at the core of the next budget and therefore at the core of the debate that we will have on the next few months to construct that budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. De Michelis. I was very happy to hear that you actually somehow even echoed what Ms. Vice President said about the principle of subsidiarity, because it needs to be all the actors involved, being actively involved and taking their part in the common goal. And you have also brought up the topic of just transition going beyond energy, but actually tackling various aspects of our economy, and we have many fish to fry. So we need to actually find instruments and policies to make sure that all parts of our economy thrive. And that brings me to our first speaker, Ms. Jarosińska-Jedynak, because in the Podkarpackie region you have the Twin Transition project, which actually supports the industry and digitalization. At the same time, you come from Poland, which is probably the flagship of the just transition, and me as an energy geek and person working in energy policy, I can see the great deal of work that the Polish energy industry and energy sector has already done in the just transition. But with energy, we're not done yet. We actually need to look at the other sectors of the economy. So, in your point of view, how should the transition go forward for the industries like steel making, heavy manufacturing, how to ensure that digitalization and reindustrialization go hand in hand, and what would you need as a representative of a region?
Dziękuję bardzo za to pytanie. Przede wszystkim chciałam podziękować Komitetowi Regionów za organizację tej dyskusji, która jest bardzo ważna i myślę, że w odpowiednim momencie ona się też odbywa, ponieważ jesteśmy przed tworzeniem polityki spójności po roku 2027. Dziękuję również przewodniczącemu Marsilio za opinię, która została przedstawiona, ponieważ ona też pokazuje, w którym miejscu w transformacji dzisiaj też jesteśmy. Tak jak jak pan powiedział, Polska jest największym beneficjentem Funduszu Sprawiedliwej Transformacji. Tylko czy ta sprawiedliwa transformacja rzeczywiście została ukierunkowana odpowiednio, ponieważ skupiliśmy się głównie na tych regionach, które wydobywają węgiel i tak naprawdę te środki, które zostały przekierowane, zostały właśnie ukierunkowane na działania w regionach, gdzie te kopalnie węgla, gdzie ten przemysł węglowy jest na bardzo dużą skalę. Natomiast tak jak mój region, województwo podkarpackie, nie ma kopalni węgla, nie zostało objęte Funduszem Sprawiedliwej Transformacji, ale już w 2020 roku zgłaszaliśmy swoje uwagi do rozporządzenia Parlamentu Europejskiego i Rady ustanawiającego Fundusz na rzecz Sprawiedliwej Transformacji, aby również te regiony, które nie mają w swoim obszarze kopalni węgla, nie mają przemysłu węglowego, ale mają właśnie bardzo wiele przemysłu opartego na węglu, jak chociażby huty, jak chociażby przemysł motoryzacyjny, przemysł stalowy, również z tego funduszu mogły skorzystać, bo cały czas mówimy o sprawiedliwej transformacji. Transformacji, która nie pozostawia nikogo w tyle, a przecież ta sprawiedliwa transformacja za chwilę może doprowadzić do ubóstwa energetycznego. Ubóstwa energetycznego wśród zwykłych mieszkańców naszych regionów, którzy nie będą mogli skorzystać dzisiaj właśnie z tego paliwa, którym jest węgiel. I jeżeli mówimy o województwie podkarpackim i o tych działaniach, czy funduszach, które należałoby skierować, ja zgadzam się z moimi przedmówcami, którzy mówili o tym, że polityka spójności i Fundusz Sprawiedliwej Transformacji to takie fundusze, które powinny się wzajemnie uzupełniać. Polityka spójności powinna realizować swoje cele zrównoważonego rozwoju, czyli te cele, do których została powołana, do których została stworzona, ponieważ dalej mamy ogromne dysproporcje pomiędzy państwami członkowskimi, pomiędzy poszczególnymi regionami państw członkowskich, więc polityka spójności powinna dalej realizować te zadania. Fundusz Sprawiedliwej Transformacji powinien być funduszem uzupełniającym działania polityki spójności w taki sposób, aby właśnie przemysły, które są uzależnione od węgla, mogły w sposób bardzo płynny przejść na tą zeroemisyjną gospodarkę, mogły realizować działania w obszarze zielonej gospodarki, tak aby bez uszczerbku dla zatrudnienia pracowników, bez uszczerbku dla gospodarki, która tak naprawdę napędza cały region, napędza kraj, mogły być dalej realizowane. I my dzisiaj mówimy o pewnych elementach, które może zostały przeoczone, może zbyt szybko chcieliśmy zrealizować te działania związane ze sprawiedliwą transformacją. Mówimy o takich elementach, które jeszcze pozostają w tyle. A przecież komisarz Elisa Ferreira mówiła, że sprawiedliwa transformacja nie pozostawia nikogo w tyle. A dzisiaj jednak mówimy o tym, że sieci ciepłownicze to są takie działania, które powinny być zrealizowane, bo nie wolno było i nie można ich finansować jako nieefektywnych systemów w polityce spójności. A przecież to one są właśnie tym elementem, który powinien być zrealizowany, abyśmy mogli mówić o sprawiedliwej transformacji. To również termomodernizacja budynków, odnawialne źródła energii, ale taka termomodernizacja budynków, która nie doprowadza do ubóstwa energetycznego najbiedniejszych mieszkańców naszych regionów. Mówimy o paliwach kopalnych. Dzisiaj, szanowni państwo, mówiąc o gospodarce, o modernizacji gospodarki, o realizacji i wdrażaniu innowacyjnych rozwiązań w gospodarce, musimy również pamiętać o tym, że czasami jednak potrzebne są takie elementy projektów, które ciągle korzystają z paliw kopalnych, jak chociażby koparki, dźwigi, których dzisiaj przemysł nie może zakupić, bo są one niekwalifikowalne zgodnie z zasadami właśnie sprawiedliwej transformacji. Więc czasami zbyt szybko podejmowane działania, zbyt innowacyjne podejście do transformacji energetycznej powoduje, że są elementy działań, elementy projektów, które nie mogą być zrealizowane w związku z tym, że za szybko chcieliśmy dojść do tej transformacji energetycznej, powodując, że tracimy bardzo wiele dobrych projektów, bo chociażby mówiąc o gazie ziemnym, o inwestycjach w sieci gazu ziemnego, które później przecież mogą być wykorzystywane do przesyłu chociażby wodoru, do przesyłu zielonego gazu, które może być wykorzystywane dalej jako źródło zielonej energii, mogłyby być zrealizowane właśnie w tej perspektywie. I to, o czym dzisiaj mówiła Roberta, czyli kwestie ambitnych celów i tego, że te ambitne cele wymagają też odpowiednich środków finansowych. To jest właśnie to, o czym powinniśmy pamiętać, projektując politykę spójności po roku 2027, tworząc z prawdziwego zdarzenia Fundusz na rzecz Sprawiedliwej Transformacji, ale taki fundusz, który ma w sobie wszystkie elementy. Nie tylko kwestie związane z odchodzeniem od węgla, czyli inwestowanie właśnie w regiony, które tylko i wyłącznie skupiają się na tym węglu, ale patrząc bardzo szeroko, że ta transformacja dotyczy przede wszystkim mieszkańców, dotyczy każdego mieszkańca naszego regionu, dotyczy przedsiębiorstw, dotyczy gospodarki tej, która oparta jest dzisiaj na paliwach kopalnych, no i oczywiście dotyczy tej transformacji, która będzie przebiegała w kontekście ludzi, wykwalifikowania osób, przekwalifikowania tych osób do zupełnie innych działań. Dlatego mówiąc dzisiaj o sprawiedliwej transformacji i to, o czym też zostało wspomniane, że to regiony najlepiej wiedzą, mają największą wiedzę ekspercką, jak to powinno wyglądać, tak samo jest w Polsce. Polska środki, które ma do dyspozycji w ramach Funduszu Sprawiedliwej Transformacji, w całości przekazała do regionów. Mamy regionalne plany sprawiedliwej transformacji. To regiony decydują, na jakie działania będą te środki przeznaczać i to regiony wiedzą najlepiej, w którym kierunku ta transformacja powinna przebiegać. Ale pomimo tego, że te 3 miliardy 850 milionów euro środków na sprawiedliwą transformację w Polsce mamy do dyspozycji, wszyscy zdajemy sobie sprawę, że to ciągle są za małe środki. Dlatego uzupełnienie polityki spójności w postaci ambitnego funduszu z ambitnymi celami jest jak najbardziej dzisiaj potrzebne. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much for your remarks and for actually outlining that the just transition is becoming more complex. We're moving away from focusing on how to replace coal by other sources to actually focusing on how we should arrange that the economy works as a whole. And that brings me to our last speaker in our panel, Ms. Tomozei from the EIB, who actually has, let's say, the overview from the perspective of the European Investment Bank on the various projects and various policies, and who can actually assess how is the just transition mechanism working so far and what is ahead. Because in the sports terminology, we are, let's say, in the halftime of the just transition mechanism period, and you can very well assess what has been done so far, what are the lessons learned, and what should be the way ahead, not only for the rest of this just transition mechanism period, but also beyond 2027 for the new multi-annual financial framework and for the just transition in 2030s. Because let's face it, the just transition process will not be over with this financial framework. So we would actually very much appreciate your insights and what should be the way forward.
Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting the AB to this very timely workshop. Thanks to President Marsilio for the draft opinion as well. First of all, let me just reassure that, from the top of our institution, from our new President Nadia Calvino, the approach is we cannot leave anyone behind. So just transition is very much a core priority of the AB. And the way we are doing is we support cities and regions, we support people with reskilling or with education, we support industries, because the goal is to help decarbonizing and also diversifying the economies. So I will just explain a little bit how we go about the just transition and then talk about the midterm, what we see, what lessons we learned to share with you. So first of all, our approach is, of course, very much aligned with the European Commission. And in fact, we are the prime partners of member states and the Commission to support the territories that are most affected by decarbonization. And we help these territories towards inclusive and sustainable new models for their regional economies. We provide a mix of loans. We support blending, grants and loans, and also we also provide advisory services, which is a point I will insist a bit later on. So when it comes to the Just Transition Mechanism, first, we are co-financing the national obligations under the first pillar, the Just Transition Fund. And we have already done this in Spain, in Greece and Cyprus, Estonia and Latvia. So these are the 5 countries we provided support for the first pillar. Under the second pillar, which is also under the InvestEU program, here we support private sector investments. And recently we had examples of wind farms in Greece or broadband deployment in Ireland. And perhaps a few more words on the third pillar, which is the public sector loan facility, because this is a special one where the grants are blended with loans from the EIB. And here we saw increasing uptakes from cities and territories all around Europe, from sustainable transport in Nantes to affordable housing in Sweden, in Skelfea, or in Poland as well, or in Czech Republic, for various sectors. So this third pillar is something we are very much focused upon. And indeed, we have recently finalized a midterm review of the Just Transition Mechanism. And in fact, today it's the first time we share publicly the findings of this first the midterm review, which looked at the 2 years, 2022 and 2023, 2 years of implementation. So we saw a slow start, but as I said, there was a pickup that we note, and we see also this in the pipeline of projects going forward. So by 2023, we had 18 projects, around 1.6 billion euros, and these projects support almost 6 billion in investments, in overall investments. Now for 2024, we see already 23 projects, but for almost a double amount, 6 billion, 3 billion euros in support that we'll provide. As I said, in addition to lending, we also provide advisory services under the JASPERS joint program with the European Commission, and we have 78 assignments. Almost half are already completed, half are ongoing. And this is very important because with this advisory support, we help the projects become mature and bankable. And timing is of essence when it comes to the Just Transition Mechanism because of the very fast deadline. So with this integrated approach of lending plus advisory, we currently reached 24 member states, which I think it's quite a successful given the short time so far. And again, projects are very, very different because we were mentioning the coal regions. Of course, we had recently a project in Lusatia in Germany, but also a very different approach. For instance, not focusing only on the green investments, but a cultural transformation of city of Ostrava in the Czech Republic, with building of a beautiful opera house or philharmonic house that would revive the city and attract more interest. So a few lessons from this assessment that we have done at midterm. This approach of JTM from our interactions with the territories and promoters, this approach works. Of course, what is very important is earlier on to have a strategic planning to determine what support under the 3 pillars is best suited for the projects from the different territories. We saw indeed that the third pillar gained traction, also because cities decided or realized that if they bundle projects, smaller projects together, they reach a critical scale, and that's more easier to finance. The second learning is that, so yes, the approach works, but of course we can improve it even further. The second point is that advisory is very crucial because, again, timing is very short. We need to prepare these projects very quickly, and JASPERS is ready, of course, to support the project preparation. We also noticed, and maybe this is another point I want to share, an uneven uptake in the different member states. Some countries have exhausted their resources under Pillar 3, which were not very high, and others also see the challenge in implementation because of competing priorities. At the same time, they need to have the RRF, there is just transition, there is a question. So the deadlines are also very short, and sometimes, we see this issue of competing priorities. Perhaps I will stop here, but just wanted to share with you that indeed, we need to keep in mind the timing and available resources out there also for the advisory to help speed up the projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Tomozei, and many thanks to all our panelists for their initial remarks. Let's kick off the debate. We have very good time, so what I suggest is that I kick off the debate with one or two initial questions, and then I believe we should have time for 1, 2, maybe 3 questions from the audience. I don't know if the audience noticed, but actually our panel is divided into 2 parts. So one represents the top-down, the Commission and EIB level, and on my left we have the representatives of the regions. However, for the kick-off questions, me as a Brussels representative of an energy company, I'm very much interested in the EU perspective. So I would like all of us to look at the topic of the just transition from the perspective of all regions, not only the Podkarpackie and Lazio region. And I would be interested to hear your views. How can we ensure that all regions in the EU, regardless their starting point, regardless their initial social economic situation, can actually achieve transition that is not only economically viable, but also socially equitable? And a connected question, how to ensure a balance between decarbonization, the environmental sustainability goals, but also the social sustainability goals, how to ensure that while decarbonizing our economy and moving to more sustainable modes of economic activity, we can actually protect European jobs, European industries, and European competitiveness. Actually, from now, I would start from the left to the right. So, Madam Jarosińska-Jedynak, the floor is yours.
Dziękuję bardzo. Tak, mnie też interesuje głównie kwestia dotycząca środków europejskich, bo to bardzo ważny aspekt, który jest w stanie zagwarantować tą równowagę. Oczywiście on jest w stanie ją zagwarantować pod warunkiem tego, że urzędnicy Komisji Europejskiej będą słuchać i wsłuchiwać się w głos przedstawicieli regionów. To regiony wiedzą, w jaki sposób powinna być przeprowadzona transformacja w sposób sprawiedliwy dla społeczeństwa. Regiony wiedzą, jakie projekty powinny być realizowane i przede wszystkim musimy wziąć pod uwagę też ramy czasowe, które są niezbędne do tego, żeby ten proces dekarbonizacji, proces transformacji przeprowadzić w sposób bardzo sprawiedliwy i zrównoważony też, ponieważ wszystkie regiony startują z zupełnie innego poziomu dotyczącego wykorzystania węgla w swoich gospodarkach, więc musimy uwzględniać przede wszystkim ten stopień dekarbonizacji w poszczególnych państwach członkowskich. Przede wszystkim musimy pamiętać o tym, żeby, tak jak powiedziałam, nie zamykać się w ramach finansowych, bo to nie jest proces na jedną perspektywę finansową, tylko jest to proces bardzo długotrwały i on się zaczyna właśnie od kwestii społecznych, poprzez kwestie związane z gospodarką, gdzie musimy wprowadzić proces badawczo-rozwojowy po to, żeby poprzez projekty badawczo-rozwojowe gospodarka wiedziała, w którą stronę inwestować środki. Gospodarka obiegu zamkniętego, bardzo ważny element procesu transformacji, ale również proces związany z walką z ubóstwem energetycznym, z podnoszeniem wiedzy i świadomości mieszkańców naszych regionów w zakresie właśnie przeprowadzania transformacji, ale również prowadzenia tej transformacji przez każdego z nas, każdego mieszkańca naszego regionu, więc tu potrzebujemy właśnie podnoszenia wiedzy, świadomości, ale to również budowanie kompetencji pracowników, kompetencji na przyszłość, właśnie w obszarze rozwoju nowych technologii, cyfryzacji, odchodzenia od tych tradycyjnych procesów. Dzisiaj większość pracowników obawia się tego systemu transformacji cyfrowej, tej transformacji, która w głowach wielu pracowników zabiera miejsca pracy. My dzisiaj wiemy, że ta transformacja jest niezbędna. My dzisiaj też potrzebujemy pracowników właśnie o kompetencjach w obszarze cyfryzacji. Więc na pewno musimy brać pod uwagę głos eksperta, głos regionu, bo on jest najważniejszy, bo jest blisko ludzi, blisko mieszkańca, właśnie tam, gdzie ten proces dekarbonizacji, transformacji musi być przeprowadzony. Dziękuję.
Grazie. Credo che siamo tutti d'accordo che la transizione, sia quella digitale che quella relativa alla decarbonizzazione, può essere una grande opportunità, ma deve essere, l'abbiamo già detto, una transizione giusta, una transizione equa, sostenibile da un punto di vista economico, da un punto di vista sociale. Quale può essere l'approccio? Ho ascoltato tutti gli interventi. Certamente abbiamo bisogno di più fondi. Senza risorse adeguate non si può sostenere una ambiziosa transizione. Quindi più risorse. Bastano solo più risorse? No. Credo che dobbiamo rafforzare un metodo condiviso, lo sottolineo condiviso, partecipato, un metodo che sia piuttosto una pianificazione, quindi una strategia, una pianificazione delle risorse e una finalizzazione delle risorse. A mio avviso ci vuole qualcosa in più che un osservatorio, che è pure una idea apprezzabile. Bisogna creare una sorta di cabina di regia interistituzionale, quindi una strategia molto concreta per non lasciare indietro nessuno, per non disperdere questi finanziamenti, per sostenere le priorità dei territori, che possono essere tante, compresa il sostegno agli strumenti amministrativi, compreso la formazione, le competenze, e poi ci dobbiamo prendere un tempo ragionevole, perché la fretta rischia solo di creare dei danni irreversibili alle nostre filiere produttive. Abbiamo fatto l'esempio dell'automotive. Se l'automotive va in crisi in modo irreversibile, nel giro di pochi mesi anche, non saranno necessari anni se noi non interveniamo, chiudiamo una filiera che porterà a un effetto molto negativo sul nostro sistema produttivo, avrà delle ripercussioni forti in termini di perdita dei posti di lavoro e non servirà non ci aiuterà a affrontare meglio la transizione energetica, ma renderà semplicemente il nostro sistema economico europeo meno competitivo. Quindi dobbiamo fare squadra e condividere le problematiche, condividere le opportunità e fare un piano d'azione. Quindi non ci dobbiamo scoraggiare, ma non dobbiamo sottovalutare i problemi e i pericoli. Abbiamo già dimostrato in alcuni momenti anche della storia recente, pensiamo all'emergenza Covid, che quando mettiamo a fattor comune tutte le nostre competenze, tutti i fondi possibili, le migliori misure, l'Europa può reagire in maniera molto performante, molto adeguata, molto competitiva, però dobbiamo sentirci una squadra.
The just transition is not only economically viable, but also socially equitable. And second question was how to ensure the balance between the environmental sustainability goals, but also on the other hand, the social sustainability, the job protection in the EU, the protection of EU industries and EU competitiveness.
Well, I will not reply to that question. Let me take it from a slightly different angle, because we are very much looking ahead, looking at the future, but we sometimes forget that we have a present to manage. And why I want to concentrate on that for a second, because we are entering a very difficult discussion on the future of the policies, on the future of the EU budget. Over the next 6-7 months, the Commission will develop its thinking. And you saw during the weekend the leaks of ideas that are circulating, good or bad, doesn't matter. So the work is happening, the work is ongoing and is happening. Now, it is very difficult to sit down at the table of that conversation with the policy, and I'm referring to cohesion policy and to the Just Transition Fund, that on the 4th year of implementation is a 3% of execution. 3%. Now, we can discuss and share all the reason why that has happened and is happening, because regulations were agreed very late, because most of the administration are focusing on the implementation of the recovery and resilience facility. They're all good reasons. But it doesn't matter. When we will sit down at the table, the net contributors that have as a normal objective to reduce the budget will look at cohesion policy, they will look at the Just Transition Fund, and they will say those policies do not perform. And I'm saying this because I think that we have here a collective interest to do a fantastic effort to accelerate expenditure and accelerate the projects that are needed to absorb those resources, because otherwise the conversation will be extremely difficult. It's a bit provocative, but not really, because we are having that discussion internally in the Commission. I don't know whether I'm top-down or bottom-up, but within the Commission we are the ones that are saying, no, we need to listen to the regions, we need to have instruments that involve regions and local authority in the design and implementation, but then we have a bit of a difficulties to defend that argument if at the same time the policy does not advance at the rhythm that is expected. The other thing that I want also to underline is that many of the instruments we are discussing, and we can obviously think of a bigger budget, though for the reason that I said in my previous intervention, I think we will be lucky if we will have the same budget we have now because of the different pressures. But some of the instruments, we have them. We have them right now. The Just Transition Fund, the structural funds. We have a midterm review coming up next year by March 25, May 25, all of the regional programs will have to look at whether the priorities that they have identified back in 2020 are still valid. And there is the possibility to shift resources. Well, if the transition, demographic transition, industrial transition, green transition is a priority, let's show it. Let's show it by saying, okay, we shift resources from those, whatever priorities, to serve that transition, with all its dimensions, because the Just Transition Fund is not only an economic instrument. It's an economic instrument. It helps the transformation and the diversification of territories. It supports skills. There is the Social Climate Fund that is coming up, that will start next year, I think. The member states have to present their plans, 78 billion euro, only to support the social dimension and the social effects of those transitions. So what I'm trying to say is that let's use the instrument that we have to show that we local and regional community, if you want, let me put it that way, that we are efficient and effective in using those resources so that we can then make a strong argument for reinforcing even more those instruments in the future.
Thank you very much. I can only echo what you said, because from the perspective of my company, we actually didn't or haven't succeeded much yet in using the Just Transition Fund. But there might be various reasons. There might be, support at the local level, at the regional level, but not at the state level for a certain project, or the other way around. Maybe one follow-up question. Of course, there's no silver bullet, and if there was and you had it, you would probably be laureate of Nobel Prize. But if you could give an advice to the participants here in the room, how to actually make the use of the Just Transition mechanism more efficient, and how to speed up the work so that we achieve our goals, what would it be?
I know that regions are sitting on significant resources. In the case of Italy, we have significant resources allocated to the ex Silva in Taranto and to Sulcis Iglesientes in Sardinia, and we are still not seeing things happening. Now, I think that part of it has to do with administrative capacity. And I'm saying this because we need to really think very seriously how to reinforce the capacity at local and regional level, at the level of the beneficiaries, because we can pour all the money we want in countries and in regions, but if you do not have the structures that are able to manage those resources, nothing will happen. And let's not forget that some of these member states have seen the amount of money to be managed in more or less the same period of time multiplied by 4 or 5 times. This is the case of Italy, this is the case of Spain, this is the case of Portugal, this is the case of Greece, this is the case of France. Clearly, the administration in the meantime has not been multiplied by 4 or 5. So there is a gigantic effort to make in supporting with technical assistance and a reform of the public administration, the sector. I think that one of the key bottlenecks we face in many of our member states and regions is a public administration capacity issue. I'm not saying that it's the only question, but I think that this is one of the questions that needs to be addressed.
Thank you very much. Madame Tomozei, last but not least, from the perspective of the European Investment Bank, how to achieve the balance between all the complex challenges that we face, and how to make sure that not only the regions but the European economy as such actually can thrive in the transition. What should be done?
Thank you. I think I will have a positive message, because already at the EIB for many years, we didn't see things as black and white. Competitiveness, climate, cohesion, for us, they all go together. And we see this actually in practice through the projects that we finance. Just to say that as we are the Bank of the EU, cohesion is in our statute, so last year, we financed 36 billion euros in less developed and transition regions. And 60% of that was for green financing. So we don't see opposing objectives here. the recent examples with that we have, and maybe I quote a couple, can really demonstrate that. So we have now the world first net zero tire factory in Romania that is being built. Or also state-of-the-art wind farms in Sicily. So we see these complementary objectives in practice every day. And what we also think is that the green transition is actually an opportunity, and we need to seize that opportunity to boost the productivity and also to build new industrial ecosystems in the different territories. Now, what we need to do, of course, in a collective effort, also is to decrease the cost to make the transition more affordable. And as the IB for decades now, this is how we operate. We support new emerging technologies and de-risk the cost of these technologies that afterwards they are deployed at scale. We did this with classical wind farms decades ago, and now we are at the offshore floating wind farms, and we continue with other technologies, hydrogen, etc. Another point now that we would see as important condition would be actually not to focus only on the capital cities, but go beyond that and spread the opportunities for innovation and for growth in other regions. But for that, of course, it's easier said than that. For that, we need connectivity, digital, we need transport connectivity, we need also the social investments in hospitals, we need good education, we need affordable housing to keep or to bring back the people to those regions. And all that shows, I think, very well what was mentioned before, that we need also better or more strategic planning at this regional and local level to look longer term what kind of investments, what kind of sectors, what kind of decisions they will make, and also decide what are the best instruments to use in that respect. Because if we would have, if we talk about projects that do not have revenues, of course we will need grant financing. But if there are revenues coming in, perhaps there is a better solution to have a mix of loans and grants that will have a revolving nature and will multiply actually the scarce use from the EU budget or public budgets. Yes, I think that would be, in summary, the ideas that we'll have, that yes, we should not see as opposing the climate to competitiveness to cohesion, that we need strategic planning and that we need to create the conditions and do investments to support also the future industries coming in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a few minutes left, so I would like to open the floor to the audience after questions. Actually, we already received one request for the floor, so maybe I will give a floor for the question to Mr. Galvani of Sicily.
Grazie. Quanto tempo abbiamo a disposizione? How many times for...
In total, we have 5 minutes for your question and the replies. Of course, if the others can then...
Ok. Grazie, intanto buongiorno a tutti, ringrazio il Presidente Marsilio che non è più presente, ringrazio tutti i relatori che sono intervenuti e mi compiaccio per l'esposizione che è stata fatta sino a questo momento. Per me è un piacere essere qui come Presidente dell'Assemblea regionale siciliana. Ho dovuto un po' stravolgere l'intervento perché ho ascoltato ogni singolo intervento e devo dire che sono stato particolarmente colpito da quello dell'Angelilli. Io quello che ritengo è che in questa fase noi ci concentreremo certamente in particolare sulle regioni come la nostra, che sono ancora assolutamente dipendenti dai combustibili fossili e dalle industrie ad alta intensità energetica, e il graduale abbandono del carbone è essenziale per poter raggiungere gli obiettivi climatici, specialmente nelle regioni carbonifere e in quelle ad altissima intensità di carbonio, ma ritengo che tutto debba essere fatto con grandissimo criterio e chiedo veramente di stare attenti, perché quando c'è una produzione normativa, quando si va d'incontro magari a una norma, a una legge che è fatta su principi assolutamente corretti e giusti, come quello che può essere il Green Deal, dobbiamo anche pensare a quelli che sono gli effetti che questi produrranno. E nel mio territorio, lo dico apertamente, sono assolutamente devastanti. Ricordo a me stesso che nel 2011, quando chiuso uno stabilimento, che era quello della Fiat di Termini Imerese, sono passati 13 anni con 2.000 lavoratori, ancora oggi si stanno cercando delle soluzioni. E quindi quello era soltanto per uno stabilimento, soltanto per una regione, soltanto per la Sicilia. Il contesto geopolitico è molto frastagliato e io mi ritengo un europeista convinto, ritengo che l'Europa certamente sia unica, ma per me nel concetto che io ho d'Europa, se la Finlandia ha un problema così come la Francia o la Germania, io non mi giro dall'altra parte, ma cerco di essere assolutamente collaborativo e trovare quelle che possono essere determinate soluzioni, perché ritengo che l'Europa sia unica, ma è molto diversa. E allora rispetto anche a quelli che sono i problemi infiniti ne avremmo noi in Sicilia, da quello dei lavoratori, piuttosto che dal petrolchimico che ha raffinato per tanti anni, inquinando i nostri mari, le nostre terre per tantissimi anni, che andrebbero probabilmente chiusi o comunque dove ci sarebbe una perdita di lavoratori. Dice bene l'Angelilli quando non parla soltanto di risorse di natura economica, perché il problema non è soltanto quello. Noi abbiamo un problema che è anche infrastrutturale, noi siamo purtroppo molto arretrati sotto il profilo dello standard delle altre regioni europee. Ed è molto grave anche quello che il giusto intervento che fa De Michelis quando parla di un'incapacità amministrativa. Peggio mi sento a dover prendere delle misure così importanti e sapere che esistono delle regioni che hanno un'incapacità amministrativa tale da non riuscire a far stare una regione importante come la Sicilia, che ricordo che fa 5 milioni di abitanti, non è l'ultima delle regioni, e non riuscire ad adeguarsi a quello che è la criticità o a quello che è lo standard delle altre regioni europee. Quindi l'invito che io faccio è che ci possa essere veramente particolare attenzione su un tema come questi, perché talvolta una legge con una finalità assolutamente buona può fare molto, molto danno. Grazie.
Okay, we had rather a statement and a question. Would like some of the panelists like to react to the intervention by Mr. Gagnano? If not, is there any other question? And I would like to kindly ask you to direct a question and not a statement, because unfortunately we're running out of time and we will need to release our translators, to whom I would like to thank. If there are no questions, I would like to close the debate. First of all, I would like to thank the Committee of Regions and the ECR Group for hosting today. To all our panelists for their great interventions and insights. What I'm taking away from today is that the challenges we are facing are very complex. We're not only looking at the energy transition of the regions, but at the economic transition. To achieve that, we will need funding. We will need to streamline the funding and not to make a big mess out of that. And we need to achieve an inclusion, not only social inclusion, but also governance inclusion and subsidiarity, and make sure that we all pull and contribute in order to achieve the results we want to achieve. So once again, thank you very much for your participation, and I wish you a very nice rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.